Just when we believe we have arrived at the answers we were seeking, life reveals that every level of understanding is only a doorway to the next. Each discovery closes one question, only to open a deeper one beneath it. In this journey, we return with a profound realization that the universe is not held together merely by objects and forces, but by an underlying medium that quietly governs how energy, information, and existence itself move through space. This medium transcends life and death, surpasses cycles of creation and dissolution, and operates far beneath what we ordinarily recognize as empty space. It is all-pervading, unseen, and yet indispensable. Here, we begin an exploration of that hidden foundation, the very fabric of existence, by first understanding how even light, as an electromagnetic wave, relies on this fabric to travel, interact, and reveal the universe to us. An electromagnetic wave moves forward because its electric and magnetic parts constantly sustain one another. A changing magnetic field gives rise to a changing electric field, and that changing electric field in turn produces a magnetic field again. This continual handoff allows the wave to carry energy across space without fading. The vacuum itself doesn't add or remove energy, but it shapes how this process unfolds. Its permittivity sets how strongly electric fields can exist and respond, while its permeability sets how magnetic fields can take shape and evolve. Together, these two properties fix the balance between the electric and magnetic fields and determine the speed at which the wave travels, the speed of light. To elaborate a little bit on permeability, permeability tells us how easily the medium allows a magnetic field to form. A higher permeability means the medium supports magnetic field lines more readily, as if it gives the magnetic field room to spread and strengthen. In free space, permeability sets how magnetic fields naturally link with electric currents and changing electric fields. Similarly, to elaborate a little bit on permittivity, permittivity tells us how easily the medium allows an electric field to form. A higher permittivity means the medium resists the buildup of electric field more, because charges or dipoles inside the medium shift to oppose it. In free space, permittivity is a fundamental property that determines how strongly an electric field can act in a vacuum. When an electromagnetic wave strikes a conducting material, the wave's electric field drives the free electrons in the conductor into motion. These moving charges set up currents that generate opposing fields, altering the fate of the incoming wave. Depending on the properties of the wave and the conductor, part of the energy is reflected back into space, while another part penetrates and is absorbed, usually turning into heat as electrons scatter within the material. The balance between reflection and absorption depends on several factors, depends on wave properties, and those are frequency, wavelength, incident surface features, angle of incidence, and polarization of the electric field. High-frequency waves penetrate less deeply. Smooth surfaces reflect more cleanly. Rough ones scatter and absorb more. And then the balance further depends on material properties, and those are electrical conductivity of the material, magnetic permeability, and material's thickness relative to the skin depth. Good conductors like silver or copper reflect strongly. Poor conductors absorb more. Magnetic permeability influences how magnetic fields couple to the material. For skin depth thickness, if the conductor is thinner than the skin depth, more of the wave can pass through instead of being reflected. Together, these factors decide whether the wave would be reflected like a mirror or would be mostly absorbed and transformed into some other form like heat, or would get divided between the two outcomes. From the perspective of an EM wave, its journey comes to a close only when it is fully absorbed, when it ceases to exist in its original form and is transformed into something else. This conclusion is governed entirely by the phenomenon of absorption. Now, when an electromagnetic wave falls on an electrical non-conductor, a dielectric, its electric field cannot drive free charges as it would in a conductor, but instead it shifts the bound charges, electrons and atomic nuclei, marginally within their atoms or molecules. This creates tiny dipoles that align with the field, a process called polarization. The degree to which this polarization occurs is described by the material's permittivity, often expressed as the dielectric constant, which is essentially the relative permittivity. A higher dielectric constant means the material can store more electric energy in the form of these microscopic dipoles. For the wave itself, this interaction usually means that part of the wave is transmitted into the material but slowed down, since light travels slower in media with higher permittivity. Part is reflected at the surface due to the impedance mismatch between the two medium, and a small part may be absorbed if the dielectric has internal losses. So, the permittivity of the non-conductor not only controls how much of the wave enters and how fast it propagates inside, but also directly determines how effectively the material can act as an energy-storing medium, as in the case of capacitors. When an electromagnetic wave enters a nonconductor, the material's permittivity governs how much its bound charges polarize to oppose the applied electric field, storing some of the wave's energy in the process. In the vacuum, there are no physical charges to displace, yet the wave still encounters an intrinsic permittivity, the permittivity of free space. This property acts like a built-in universal polarization opposition, not by moving charges, but by dictating how the electric field and magnetic field must interlock. As the wave's electric field changes, this vacuum permittivity ensures that an opposing displacement current is defined, which in turn sustains a changing magnetic field. Likewise, the magnetic field regenerates the electric field in return. In this way, the vacuum's permittivity, paired with its permeability, provides the very fabric that allows electromagnetic waves to propagate through empty space without loss, making the vacuum itself the universal medium of light and radiation. Now, there is something to ponder over. By definition, we are taught to think of vacuum as nothing, empty, inert, devoid of any properties or influence. That is our conventional impression. Yet, when we look closer, we discover that vacuum is far from passive. It does not merely sit in silence. Instead, it exhibits remarkable qualities. One of the most significant in this context is its ability to oppose the polarization of an electric field. That is not nothing at all. If vacuum were truly indifferent, neither favoring nor opposing a magnetic field, neither favoring nor opposing an electric field, then electromagnetic waves would never propagate. You must be wondering, if the vacuum contains no matter, no charges, and no aligned or misaligned electrons, then how can it possibly oppose polarization? What, in that case, serves as the source of this polarization effect? The answer comes from quantum physics, more specifically from quantum electrodynamics, QED. According to QED, what we call vacuum is not truly empty. It is a dynamic quantum fabric filled with fleeting fluctuations. In this vacuum, pairs of virtual particles, such as electrons and positrons, constantly appear and vanish within the limits allowed by quantum uncertainty. These short-lived virtual pairs momentarily respond to electric fields, creating what is known as vacuum polarization. an effect that gives even empty space a measurable electric permittivity. The deeper questions of why these virtual particles emerge, what governs their transient existence, and how they influence field interactions lead us into the fascinating domain of quantum field theory, a discussion we can explore in greater detail another time. All that we discussed in the context of EM wave so far, will it be same for ELF wave? Extremely low frequency. ELF electromagnetic waves are unique because of their enormous wavelengths, spanning thousands of kilometers, but they are EM waves too. When such a wave encounters physical materials, its interaction is very different from that of visible light or even radio waves. Most materials that would strongly absorb or reflect higher frequency waves simply cannot absorb ELF waves efficiently because the charges within the material cannot be accelerated effectively at such slow oscillation rates. As a result, ELF waves penetrate deeply and pass through most media with very little absorption. Instead of being easily swallowed by matter, they tend to reflect or scatter gently from large-scale boundaries, ensuring that much of their energy remains in propagation. Because absorption is so weak, ELF waves are not easily stopped. Any reflection from the surface of natural boundaries, such as the Earth's crust, the ocean surface, or even the ionosphere, sends them back into space or along the surface, allowing them to continue propagating almost indefinitely. This is why ELF signals can travel across oceans, penetrate rock, or wrap around the Earth, making them invaluable for deep submarine communication and geophysical probing. In essence, every physical surface the wave meets serves more as a reflector than an absorber, giving the ELF wave no easy way to die out. Underlying this endurance is the same principle that governs all electromagnetic waves, the vacuum's intrinsic opposition to polarization. Even at ELF scales, the vacuum's permittivity and permeability act as the foundational constants that lock the electric and magnetic fields together in their mutual regeneration cycle. The wave's slowly varying electric field defines a displacement current through vacuum permittivity, which induces a corresponding magnetic field, and that magnetic field, through vacuum permeability, sustains the electric field in return. Because physical matter offers almost no efficient path for ELF absorption, this vacuum fabric ensures the wave continues its self-propagating dance until it finds a suitable medium capable of dissipating its energy. Now comes the intriguing question: what can actually absorb an ELF wave? From a physics standpoint, we can assert with confidence that any receiver capable of resonating with the complex combination of an ELF wave's frequency, phase, amplitude or intensity, polarization and directional properties can indeed absorb it. In essence, resonance is the key. The human system by nature functions as both a transmitter and a receiver of energy. Therefore, a person who generates an ELF wave must also possess the inherent ability to absorb it, since it would naturally resonate with the very form of energy they emit. This insight leads to a profound realization. The ELF waves generated by the human mind, often manifesting as brain waves, can be absorbed properly by the same individual's own energy field or human energy self. In other words, if ELF waves are otherwise resistant to external absorption, perhaps only the receiving minds with energy characteristics matching with the originator can receive and integrate the ELF wave patterns, perhaps to the extent the characteristics are matching. This idea alone is fascinating, but the implications go even deeper. During the process of birth, as the embryo matures within the mother's womb, its developing physical and energetic form gradually becomes a suitable host for absorbing ELF wave patterns. This absorption also follows the principle of resonance. The mother's own energy receiving capacity plays a crucial role in how seamlessly this transfer occurs. If minor mismatches arise, such as slight misalignments in polarization or resonance between the incoming ELF beam and the host's energy receptive characteristics, part of the energy will reflect while the rest will still be absorbed. The portion of the ELF energy beam that aligns well with the host's resonant properties will be successfully integrated. However, if these mismatches are significant, the particular ELF beam will not be absorbed at all. For a deeper exploration into the scientific insights surrounding the perennial existence of the ELF energy self and the process of rebirth, you can watch the videos titled "There is a Heaven Out There, Why the Heaven is a Heaven," and "Process of Rebirth," available in the playlist Self Actualization for Seekers. And finally, we arrive at the most profound realization: the foundational role of the medium vacuum in the fabric of existence. We have already recognized the fact that vacuum is far from passive. It does not merely sit in silence. Instead, it exhibits remarkable qualities. One of the most significant in this context is its ability to oppose the polarization of an electric field. If vacuum were truly indifferent, neither favoring nor opposing an electric field, then electromagnetic waves would never propagate. Sunlight would never reach the Earth. Starlight would never travel across galaxies, and the universe as we know it would remain dark and lifeless. Existence itself depends on the fact that vacuum possesses characteristics that allow it to sustain and propagate energy. It is through this very nature of vacuum, its resistance to polarization, that electromagnetic waves are able to travel. And by the same principle, a brain wave, in the form of an ELF wave born from the heart's intent, can sustain itself until it is finally fulfilled by the one who desired it. In this way, vacuum acts as more than empty space. It becomes the protector, the unseen arbiter of balance, the quiet host ensuring that every field of energy finds its path and reaches its destined completion through a holistic absorption. This vacuum is not distant or abstract, it is all-pervading. We are made of it, surrounded by it, immersed in it. Yet only a few ever pause to reflect its true nature. To sense its presence is to encounter an indescribable nothingness that purifies to the very core, while allowing us to remain exactly who we are and who we have always been. When we recognize that our very existence is sustained by this medium, how should we express our gratitude? This medium that exists within and around us, the very essence we are made of, the boundless presence that pervades galaxies, stars, planets, molecules, and atoms alike. What name would you give to such a presence? We leave that choice to you. But one thing remains undeniable. It deserves our reverence, our gratitude, and our deepest bow, a humble surrender to the supreme fabric of existence with which we are forever intertwined. If you've been following along through the earlier sessions, you might be asking yourself, is this where the journey ends? The truth is both yes and no. We've laid a strong foundation, yet there's always more to uncover for those willing to go further. With that, let's explore the idea of collaborative will, and if the moment calls for it, we'll return to carry the conversation forward.